are going to do 12.2 videos. I can get that to zoom out some. Okay, so let's hide this. 12.2. What we're going to do here, I mean, technically in chapter 12.1 and for the second section, 12.2, in chapter 12, it's still exponent rules. So I'm just going to actually list the different individual things we're going to do. We'll go ahead and call that exponent rules. And then let me go ahead and list here the different individual things we're going to look at. The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to use 0 as an exponent. And then what we're going to do is we're going to, of course we're using it each time, y'all, so I'm just kind of right we're doing. Going to look at negative exponents. And then we're going to look at the quotient rule. I always forget how to spell quotient. The quotient rule. And then lastly, we will combine and do some problems that will relate to the problems that you see on your homework. I did not get to cover a certain problem in my face-to-face class today, and it was quite involved, honestly. So what I'll do is I'll go through my notes and I'll probably do a problem on a video, like a video by itself, of like one of the more difficult problems you see on your homework. Okay, so let's go ahead and start with using 0 as an exponent. If you notice right here, 0 exponent. Okay, so we are actually going to move down. Let's do this example looking at 0 as an exponent. First, let me show you what the rule is. So if we have a 0 exponent, that will look something like a to the 0. That's a base raised to the 0 power. That's something raised to the 0 power. If you have a base raised to the 0 power, it will always equal 1. There's a few exceptions, not really exceptions, but the homework will probably try to confuse you, and they'll use negative signs. It's going to be similar to that just exponent video that we did. If something has a negative sign in parentheses, of course, you're going to evaluate that differently than if you are evaluating a term that has a negative sign, but it's not in parentheses. So I'm going to show you an example of both, okay? So for the first example, let's just say we have the, let's just say we have the number 6 raised to the 0 power. So in this example, our A is actually the number 6, and then it's being raised to 0. But anything raised to 0 is just 1. So you just write 1. Okay, I'm going to do an example with a variable. Say we have the variable x, and it's being raised to the 0 power. Here, our base would be the variable x. Because it's being raised to the 0 power, anything raised to the 0 power is just 1. Okay, so let's look at, there was an example similar to this that I saw in the homework. Say we have 3 to the 0 plus 12 to the 0. 3 to the 0 would be 1. 12 to the 0 would be 1. So what we have is 1 plus 1, which is just 2. Does that make sense? Okay. That's really it as far as 0 exponent examples, not including the negative sign. So let me show you if we do have the negative sign. Okay. So if our base, right, if we have parentheses and we have like a negative 17 close parentheses. So that whole thing right there, the negative and the 17, that's our whole base. I know that that's being counted as one base because of the parentheses. You raise that to the 0 power. Anything raised to the 0 power is just 1. Okay, so here's an example of what I think could be a little confusing or kind of tricky. Say we have negative 13 raised to the 0 power. So what is my base in this problem? My base is just the 13. Yes, there is this additional negative sign, but it's not included in my, go Ellie, sorry. It's not included, go Ellie, go. My dog, sorry. Her name's Algebra. I call her Ellie, she's all behind me. The negative sign is not actually included in my base. Like they're actually different terms. Technically, that would be a negative 1 multiplying the 13, and that 13 is what's being raised to the 0 power. So what I would get is 13 raised to the 0 power is 1, and then you would just not forget or leave out the fact that that negative's like tacked onto it. So your final answer for this would be negative 1. There is an example that I am very used to putting on exams. The goal of an example that looks like this is just to see if the negative exponent rule was understood. It can get quite crazy looking, honestly. I'm just going to randomly write some stuff up here. Say we have in parentheses 3x to the 12th power, y to the 3rd power, z to the 29th power, close it, raise it to the third power, raise it to 0 power. We have 0 as an exponent. So I want you to kind of look at our 4th example that we did. That negative and that 17 were both inside of parentheses, so they were both being evaluated with the exponent of 0, and it went to 1, right? So y'all, this is now technically my A, right? That's the base being raised to 0. And I know it's all of those terms being raised to 0 because they're all inside of parentheses. And anything raised to 0 is what? It is just 1. So that would definitely be a problem that I think would be a great problem on the exam, no matter how crazy it looks, if you remember that that's all being raised to 0, and anything raised to 0 equals 1. Okay, so I'm going to I'm going to stop this recording, and the next video will be about using negative exponents. So make sure y'all ask if you have any questions, okay? Thanks. Bye.